I was given this Black & Decker circular saw, but it has one problem, and I'd say a major problem. That is, it doesn't have a plug. So I'm going to show you how to add a plug to, I guess, a tool in this instance, but honestly anything that needs to be replugged. Electricity is dangerous, so I'll warn you with that. Only do this if you feel confident, but I'll show you how straightforward it was. And actually, I'll start with a story. When I was just getting into tools, I got a whole bunch of tools given to me from an estate, but many of them didn't have plugs on the end, so I ended up just getting rid of them. And now that I know how to do it, slapping myself a bit, but that's a whole different thing. Okay, so let's say your wires weren't color-coded, so you wanted to verify which is your hot and which is your neutral. In this case, it's pretty obvious, but you want to take your meter, and you can either set it to resistance, or in this case, I'm going to use an even easier method, which is just having it on continuity. And by having it on continuity, you'll know when there's connection between 2 points. So first, we'll just make sure there's no shorts. So I'm just going to hold one lead on one wire and then tap it to both. Don't hear any beeping, so we know for sure that there's no continuity between the wires independently and across each other. So now to identify our hot and our neutral. Obviously, neutral will be white, but to figure out which is which, we just pick another wire. So in this case, I'll actually choose the ground, but we don't know that yet. So have each of the wires touching 2 separate leads, and then watch what happens when I click this. Nothing happens. Do that one more time, just because these were getting out of my hands. Nothing, right? Now if we switch over to the other wire, I'm going to keep one lead on the white still. Now we're on the black and the white. So now we know that our hot and our neutral. And from there, it's pretty obvious, right? We have a black and a white. So we are set to go. Next, you got to order you one of these cheap, I think this was like $5, replacement plugs. So they're pretty easy. There's 2 things you need to work with. One is the clamp to allow the insulated wire to come through. So we'll take that off. We'll loosen it enough. And the next thing is we'll need to pull off this cover. There we go. So we'll deal with that here in a second. First thing we want to do is get the wire through. This might be a little tight, but we'll get it. Oops. And push through the end. And we want it like this. We don't want these single insulated wires hanging out. We want this whole sheathing to protect and not be, we don't want these individual wires out of this plug. Just for the best possible connection. Now it's as simple as wiring it up. So now if we take our cap here, look at it. Obviously this is our ground. That makes it easy. And a thing I should mention is make sure that you get the right plug for your the electrical needs of the tool. So this is a 15 amp saw, so this is a 15 amp plug. So if you're 20 amp, make sure you get a 20 amp plug. Same process. So you can see we have a gold screw and then a silver screw. Gold is your hot. So we want to loosen that. I'll just loosen them all. Ground on the bottom. And then the neutral. And then just one at a time, we'll put the wires on. So I'll start with the hot first. And if I can, let's see here. You can always give yourself more room. So I'll just do that, so I'm not fighting. And then clean up those wires. Make sure that there are no rogue strands. And then what we're gonna do is hook it around here and then tighten it. Okay, just like that. Oops. And make sure we get all those strands in there, and then tighten. Perfect. So there's one. I'll do the neutral next. You always want the screw to tighten the wire in a tightening direction. So I'm gonna actually have the wire go underneath. I know it's little, being a little anal, but with electrical stuff, you don't wanna mess around. So I put that in. And then as we're tightening, counter or clockwise, that will pull the wire in rather than out. I like to always do a pull test, make sure nothing goes anywhere. Good. Now lastly, the same thing, but with the ground. All right, I had to get a light to show you. So you can see we have two threaded portions closer and then one further away. So it's like a Y. So just make sure you orient this. Have the two closer here on the top, the one on the bottom. Otherwise you'll be very frustrated trying to get this to line up. And I doubt we got that the first shot, but we'll see. Okay, well, maybe we did. All right, well, I'll be darned. Then if you were like me and undid the clamp, just go ahead and put it back on. Get a tug, and that should clamp that wire in there. So if you have a bad habit of pulling on cords instead of the actual plug, it shouldn't disconnect these from the actual prongs. Well, let's test it now that it is corded. Plug it in, and then I hope you've enjoyed and learned something. Don't be like me a few years ago and get rid of tools that just need a plug at the end. You'd be surprised how straightforward it is. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe. And in case you're interested about this saw, here's the information on this old Black & Decker saw.